Hello there and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be the reading taste tag. I will be sure to link the original creator of this tag. I don't remember their username off the top of my head down in the description. And I definitely want to get started here because I am fast losing the daylight. First question is, what is your favorite genre? And at the moment it's creative nonfiction, memoir, essay collections, poetry. Growing up it was definitely fantasy and historical fiction, which I do still enjoy. They just aren't my go-to at the moment. Question number 2 is, what is the most difficult genre for you to read? I suppose a genre that I find intimidating and sometimes difficult, but would actually like to read more of is philosophy. And part of it, I think, is being a bit overwhelmed as to where I should start. I'd like to get a better grasp on philosophy as a way to get more context for historical periods that I'm interested in, most of which fall in the modern era, say 1840s to present day, understanding philosophical movements and viewpoints, how and why they emerged, and the impact that they've had would be really cool. Again, I'm not entirely sure where to start, but if you have any suggestions for me, please leave them in the comments below. Question number 3 is, what is your preferred age range? And I'm not sure if this is a reference to demographic age range for a book or the age of the main character, so I'll answer both. I tend to read mainly adult marketed books, though I can certainly get down for a good middle grade book. Young adult is definitely an age demographic that I've kind of become somewhat wary of. Not closed off to, but wary. It depends on how it's done, overall themes in the story, etc. Age of a main character generally isn't a deal breaker for me, though I have found that I can be kind of picky when it comes to child narrators. When they're done well, it's wonderful, but when you can tell that it's an adult trying to write from a child's perspective and leaning into cliches and trying to add a level of adult emotional gravitas to a child narrator, I find that very often for me it tends to fall flat and pulls me right out of the story. Question number 4 is, are you a character-driven or a plot-driven reader? And character-driven is very much my preference, though I do enjoy and respect strong plot elements. For me, though, there has to be some sense of a character arc, a character-driven narration. I found that I really don't enjoy stories that are mostly plot-driven. There's got to be something deeper for me with all of the characters, otherwise I'm not attached to the story. Question number 5, I think. Do you have a preferred perspective? And I think I'd have to go with third-person perspective, with first-person perspective coming in decently closely second. I don't think I can recall ever having read a second-person perspective book, but if you know of any, I'd be curious to hear what they are in the comments. I also definitely have a soft spot for an omniscient third-person perspective narrator. The Book Thief by Markus Zusak has this in the form of Death as the narrator, and the Nevernight Chronicles by Jay Kristoff also does this to great sarcastic and darkly humored effect. Next question, do you have a preferred tense? I think I'd have to say that most times I actually tend to prefer past tense in books. There's a slight sense of distance with the character or characters, but in that way to me it makes me feel like I'm watching a movie unfold, and for whatever reason I find it easier to get engrossed in the story. Whereas present tense I feel like often feels like an attempt to make the reader feel like they're the main character in the story, which most of the time doesn't work for me, or it takes more for me to lower my disbelief threshold and really get into the story if that's the case. I think more often than not, present tense tends to remind me of the plethora of young adult fantasy novels that I read and did enjoy at the time growing up, and I think partially for that reason, reading present tense now as an adult kind of triggers that memory and can make something that I'm reading that's in present tense now feel a little bit juvenile. And that's not to say that I think that first-person narration is inherently juvenile. I just tend to be way more picky when it comes to a first-person narrator. Do you like series or standalone books best? Growing up, because I was very much into fantasy, I loved series. Tamora Pierce was a favorite fantasy author who had a plethora of different series that I devoured. The books of Pelennor by Alison Croghan were also ones that I would repeatedly get out of the library to reread, along with the Dear America Diaries series and the Royal Diaries by Scholastic. I still enjoy series, but they aren't generally what I'm currently drawn to at this point. I've come to really appreciate standalone books, especially when it comes to fantasy and sci-fi. Would you rather read long or short books? I've definitely been gravitating towards shorter books in the past year or so, and by shorter books I mean ones that are under 300 pages. To me, that feels like a shorter book. I do still have the occasional craving for a chunky book, and I love the feeling of being immersed in a 500+ page book, but that's not generally my current reading mindset. The next question is, what format do you like best? And physical books definitely still reign supreme for me, though I've really come to appreciate audiobooks in the past few years, and I do also enjoy reading ebooks on my tablet, but if I did have to pick, it would be physical books. And the last question to round out this tag is, what are you currently reading? And as of filming this, I'm currently reading Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, which I think is in my book bag downstairs. It's my first Ishiguro. I am intrigued. I think I'm about 30 pages in or so. There's definitely an underlying current of tension in this book that I hadn't expected and am intrigued by. But that's all that I'll say about that book for now. I hope you enjoyed watching this quick little tag video. If you'd like to answer some of these questions in the comments down below, I'd love to see it. But I think that about does it, folks. I'm gonna wrap up this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.